Hello, friends. It's John Clan III with episode 180 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, the premier Kitty Pryde Lockheed and Magic podcast. And today we're going to review Ultimate Wolverine 6, deep dive into Guardians of the Galaxy 12 as part of our Ironheart month, and then the rest of the comics of last week. So let's get into it. So, spoilers for Ultimate Wolverine 6, which just keeps getting better. I'm getting the variant cover that has Ultimate Catherine Pride on it and Gambit. And it's another trippy issue where we're learning more about Logan's psyche as he's trying to break through the Winter Soldier program. And we see the Russian trio of Magic, Colossus, and Omega Red. And we see Ileana's Dark Child persona, which looks completely terrifying. And and so Logan's just trying to fight each one of those, and eventually he snaps out of it. I do like how issue 4 was very experimental like this, but 6 they go almost the full length of the issue, but then he jumps out of it where he sees that he's back with the X-Men or the opposition, as we should be calling them, as the X-Men is a Peach Momoko book that we want to fully support still. And we see Catherine Pride in the back with Gambit, and we're reminded that she has scars in her face, but then we see another gentleman who I think's Forge, but without the cybernetic arm and leg, opposing arm and leg. Which I think would be a great idea if you make it instead of a war that you had to be vague about which war it is, but make it yeah, Logan lost his mind at one point and then, sliced off his arm and leg. And it's like, well, that's easy enough to explain. But he does have scars on his face, which I'm like, oh, so clearly this Logan at one point did break bad and, ran through some people. Obviously, you can imagine a scenario where Catherine thought it was safe enough to stand in front of him, and I imagine that he swiped and she phased, but not in time enough. Um, which sort of happened, well, not sort of, exactly is how Colossus kills her in or Age of Apocalypse. But we also see Ultimate Beast and Abigail Brand, which I'm sure is not an accident. Those two are in the same room, and then a slew of other people. Sabretooth's there, Archie and Leech is there. My anxiety immediately starts going overboard about like, oh, his next issue, he's just gonna slaughter all of these people. I don't want that. But I think this issue proves that if we're in the opposition art, I just gotta get every issue now. Because what if like Kitty's is in Catherine's in every single one of these issues? But pretty great issue. I feel compelled to write a letter. I don't know if it get published, but I'm like, if they're ask for ultimate letters, I'm gonna send one. And um. Yeah, so I don't know what to expect from this series, but I'm on board. I'm loving it. It's my favorite Ultimate title. Arguably, I'm only reading this in Ultimate X-Men, but telling me that, hey, if you want Magic and Kitty Pryde, this is the title for you, instead of trying to peer through every single panel to see if they one day will see a girl with a dragon behind her. So yeah, this is the Ultimate title I'm hitching my ride to. And then let's get into Guardians of the Galaxy 12, Volume 4, Issue 12, which you want to follow along with. You can do so on my TikTok and YouTube channels, Jacko SIII. Appreciate the support. And this came out in November 2016. Writers Brian Michael Bendis, penciler Valerio Shinetti, colorist Richard Isanov, letter VC's Corey Pettit. This was rated T. It would have cost you 399 pennies. And it's thankfully it has a recap page to get us back up to speed. A group of misfits, Drax the Destroyer, Gamora, Rocket Raccoon, Groot, Flash Thompson, aka Venom, Kitty Pryde, Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, and Angela Odin daughter join together under the leadership of Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, to fight for those who have no one to fight for them. They serve a higher cause as the Guardians of the Galaxy. The Guardians' old teammate, Captain Marvel, has asked for their backup in a fight against none other than Iron Man. As Inhuman name Ulysses seemed to be able to see the future, Captain Marvel wants to work with him, believing she has no choice if there's a chance to avert catastrophe. Iron Man believes Ulysses' personal biases and experiences make his visions too unreliable. Their disagreement is about to erupt into a civil war. They haven't chosen ideological sides, but the Guardians are united in their support for Carol. For now, one of Ulysses' visions allowed Captain Marvel to capture Thanos. Peter and Kitty know and have decided not to tell the others. Well, see, couldn't remember if Kitty was aware of that bit, or I thought he tells her the next issue, but um, I guess she does know. The issue does open up with like how many pages is this? One, two, three, like pretty much four long pages, just Rocket saying just not untrue things about America, but just like clearly the ultimate outsider, anyone from space that's like, you guys aren't even using spaceships to travel. And yet you think you're the center of the universe. Quill's trying to defend his home planet. And then we finally catch up to what everyone else is doing, where Captain Marvel is asking for their support. Kitty says, "Hey, Captain Marvel." And I love so much that Ben Grimm and Kitty Pryde, like Marvel's two biggest known Jewish characters, are finally on a team. And of course, Bendis is giving it to us this way. So it's like, this is just amazing. And Carol says, "You guys are my ace in the hole. I'll send you the signal when it's time to come out of cloak." And Ben's really wanting some New York pizza. But no, they gotta stay cloak so they can't have any fun side quests. See, I feel like she thinks I was joking when I wasn't. I think she was hoping you were joking. And then Angela says, and it's cool too that Kitty got to hang out with Angela. Like, that'd be fun to play up again. I believe once we make our presence known, the Earth heroes will lower their weapons. And Kitty jokes, now that's the funniest thing you've ever said, Angela. It was not meant to be. I know. You mock me, Kitty Pryde? And Kitty just makes any team dynamics just far more interesting. No, I mock the idea that any Avengers have the ability to back down, only based on everything I've ever seen them do or say. And Quill's like, certainly not Stark, which they're both Star-Lord at the time, which is fun. Certainly not. And Flash Thompson, whose Agent Venom has issues about if they should even be getting involved at all, but they're like, hey, we're just here to be Carol's buddies. Then Ben says, yeah, she knows what she's doing. I hope the X-Men are on her side. I hope. Call them. I'm trying. And so Angela's like, well, someone has to keep the peace. And Crow's like, well, true, but. And the kitty's like, can someone help me get the X-Men on the phone? How do you make this console an Earth phone? And Crow's like, press that button. She's like, I did. The other red button. Like, they're all red buttons. Because Ben just, I mean, he just writes comics I want to read where it's like, dramatic work, but there's some, wit in there. There's some levity. That's all I really want, especially with like the X-Men or space stuff, where it's like, give me some like connection. And the connection I crave the most is a humorous one. And then Raccoon gets everyone's, ugh, not Raccoon, horrible. Rocket's trying to get everyone's attention as he is. They made it to Earth and they can see the big standoff. Israel made it though. As soon as I stopped recording my TikTok video, I was immediately like, wait, this is Ironheart month. Did I not even do point out Ironheart? So let me correct that here on the podcast. We see Iron Man's side, which is mostly the all new X-Men, Volume 2. We had Cyclops, Beast, Evan, Genesis, Apocalypse's son, Bobby, um, Idole, Luke Cage, Ironheart, but in her original Iron Man suit, Hank Pym as the Wasp, Nova, which I believe is Sam, Miss Marvel, which is fun because I sort of am going through a Miss Marvel phase. That I've been a little busy, but I started the TV show again, and I'm like, oh, all right. Connor from Cerebro was on a podcast, Generation M, where it's like all these scholars. It's pretty much like Gosh Golly Wow, but for Miss Marvel episodes, and with like an American Pakistan or Pakistan American, excuse me, scholars reviewing each issue episode. And I was like, I need to get back into this. And I made me a list of Captain Miss Marvel appearances that I want to get, and so hopefully once I get a couple of these um other issues I want to get and back issues, I wouldn't mind trying to throw like $20 at Miss Marvel Comics, catch up on what she's going on, especially once she became officially a mutant, which is when she, of course, became on my radar. Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, Jane Thorster, Cap Falcon, Vision, Iron Man himself, Bucky Cap, I believe, and Doctor Strange. And Flash Thompson's like, that's a lot of firepower. And Kitty doesn't really want to fight them, as some of those are her old students there. And Angela's like, you are a teacher? Not a very good one if you're here on the wrong side of things. And then Rocket just wants to fight them all. And Thing, just like he was in the first Civil War, really wants to stay in the middle and not really pick sides. And then we see Carol talking, and her team is her Alpha Flight, which involves, thankfully, the OG Alpha Flight members of Puck, Aurora, Sasquatch, Shield, which should tell you everything you need to know, Monica Rambeau, Blue Marvel, the Extraordinary X-Men cast of Forge, Team Jean, Adult Iceman, Magic, so you already know which side you should be on. Storm and Maria Hill. Oh, and Black Panther, which is awkward that Black Panther and Storm are on the same team, but I will be on the same team Storm's on as well. So Iron Man's trying to make a big point of like we should just stand down. There's no need to do fighting. And but he makes a reference to like, but also we did have to fight. We'll smash you. And Captain Marvel's like, outpowered, hardly, and then lifts her hand. And then we see the Guardians all suiting up. Kitty Pryde's in an all blue outfit. Pretty much like a Blue Beetle outfit now I'm looking at, but with yellow goggles, which I suppose is a yellow beetle or Blue Beetle outfit anyways. But no skull cap though, so her brunette hair is just flowing. I'm trying to cut back to a couple pages. Yeah, it is sort of like a Blue Beetle, but with like her 90s late era Excalibur suit with like the shoulder pads, but only her right shoulder is a brown pad, and then the left shoulder just has like a softer blue pad. But yeah, it's like light blue shirt and pants, and then darker blue collar, gloves, belts, and boots. So it's like, okay, it's a great look. I mean, I prefer my Kitty Pryde in blue. I mean, I was just telling Walker D the other day because Fortnite started their new event, which I got a bunch of videos up on the YouTube channel. And Robin and Superman's in the season, so I immediately bought it as Robin's tier one and it's been a character I've been wanting. And then one of the seasons I skipped out on, I didn't get Laura Croft, and then I didn't get Superman, and so now I'm like, oh hey, I'm finally able to right those wrongs. Um, since I had Kit in Rocket League, I got Kit. Which, by the way, X-Men '97 had a whole Rocket League event, and I didn't know about it at all. I would have loved to have been told that, but I don't know. It's just irritating. Like there was free, like I could have played Rocket League for a week and gotten whatever free items. So then, as up on cue, double page splash of the Guardians coming out. Kitty's there. It's Rocket, Groot, boy Star-Lord, Angela, girl Star-Lord, which I like that she wasn't Star-Last. Ben Grimm, Drax, Gamora, and Agent Venom. And then we get a fun 14 minutes later, and the Milano explodes, which all the Guardians are heartbroken about. And then we get another. Oh, and then we get Ad About the Champions first issue coming out with Teen Scott and Miss Marvel and Nova and Amadeus Chow Hulk and Miles and Vision's daughters. I'm like, hey. And Defo X is coming out as well. Then we get a 36 minutes later, which I imagine you could potentially read in the SpongeBob voice, which I suppose I chose not to do. And unlike X Manhunt Omega, where Kitty and Magic are in a panel together but don't even look at each other, here we see Kitty Pryde and Magic like pointing hands. Their Magic has her hand on Kitty's shoulder as they're clearly talking about a fight that just happened. Where it's like, yeah, that's what I want. I want those two talking as much as possible. Give me that Cat Yana content I crave so much. The Rocket's losing his mind as the Milano completely explodes now. And you really have to recognize, like, yeah, the Guardians, like, the Milano is their home. Like, it's their spaceship and transportation, sure, but it's not like they have secret houses where they eventually take vacations or, go back home every so often. Like, no, all the precious items are in the Milano. Like, they just lost all their history. And people are just trying to be like, it's just stuff. Or it's like, yeah, it's all their stuff. Like, you're going to grieve that. Rocket puts his hood up, and it's very cute how his ears point out everything, point out his ears. We get another panel of Quill talking to Captain Marvel as he has not told Gamora that he's aware of Thanos being a prisoner, because that will cause her to lose focus or refocus up. We get in that same panel, Kitty and Magic are just talking, where I'm like, that's all we want. Give us some background action. But unfortunately, two shield goons are talking about how the second custom or whatever the shield home base is called got wrecked, but all the prisoners downstairs are fine in the sub basement, including Thanos. And Gamora's eyes widened as she was not aware he was alive. Oh, and then the inside back cover is for the Marvel Legends series, Build a Figure Juggernaut, and I own the Kitty Pryde from this line. That also include Wolverine, Iceman, Marvel's Havoc, Marvel's Rogue, Marvel's Phoenix, Cable, and Deadpool. Somehow, get Deadpool Cable doesn't have to be the Marvel's Cable. I wonder how they keep that copyright going. Because well, it's like the Captain Marvel rule, where it's like, yeah, you gotta have a Captain Marvel ongoing at all time, or at least a series of that name. So yeah, so the rest of the books, so once again, spoilers for the rest of the books. Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion 1, which we're reminded the maker, who I'm still foggy on. Like, I know he's the original Ultimate Universe's Reed Richards gone bad. I could not connect to all the other things that was going on in Ultimate Invasion. But he offered Miles a card so he can come to this new Ultimate Universe, 6160, which I finally realized it was just 616, but with a zero at the end. I'm like, oh, all right. Which I forget what the original Ultimate Universe was called. I feel like it was similar, like 1606, something like that. Like they definitely paid the fun numbers of it all. But unfortunately, Miles has a younger sister, and by younger, I mean like she's two or something. Like she should not, like she's a toddler. You know, you put her down, she could run off, and then good luck finding her. Unfortunately, she finds the business card thing and then opens up a portal and then goes through it. Miles tries to catch up, but because he's like 1 second behind, he does not know where she is in the universe. And me as an old dad, I'm immediately like, you have that missing kid. Your sole purpose must be to find this kid. And of course, that is what Miles does. But he runs into the Spider-Mans of Peter Parker and Richard Parker, which I drop Ultimate Spider-Man after like the third issue because I was just like, it doesn't matter. And then I know in one of those issues, maybe issue 6, he fights Craven, and then Craven references how the Russian mutant kicked him out of Russia for being a disgrace. So I'm like, oh hey, that's fun. Um, Which I do like the idea that magic is the face, the world face of the Russian Empire, but then like Colossus does like the day-to-day Winter Soldier type of programs. And I don't know what Omega Red brings to the table, but that's where there's story to be told. And then the Spot shows up, but not the Spot Miles is used to fighting. Just a different Spot, but um, he is a bit of a joke here. And Miles names him the Spot, which the guy's like, I don't love that name, but it sticks because that's what the Spot does. And then he notices Richard Parker's black suit looks like a symbiote, so he calls him Venom. And Richard's already like a big fan of Miles, and you can see Peter's jealousy of being like, you're no longer the senior Spider-Man. Like clearly there's someone closer to Richard's age that he can now hang out with and, be cool older brothers vibes. So that was fun. But he cannot find um his sister at all. Powers of the world powers, weird way to attempt to say it, recognize Earth portals, and then we see magic is one of the people he takes an interest, and they all want to know the source of it, and so that's going to be the big crux of the next four issues. I believe it's a five-issue series. But yeah, I'm on board for this. Oh yeah, X-Men 17. Uh, let's see. We learn one of the three K members. So there's Wire, who just is a new character and does not have my attention. Cassandra Nova, and then the one of the third people is Astra, who I know from like the Alan Davis era that followed the 35th anniversary era of X-Men. That Joe Kelly and Steven Seagal. Um, for a second, I was like, wait, but yeah, those two, and then because editorial's thumbs, they were like, we gotta leave here. And then, they team up later to become the Men of Action. So I'm like, that's fun. And I'm a fan of that era. So, but it was also like my first monthly X-Men era. So you're always like a fan of your introduction. Um, and then they left. Alan Davis essentially takes over both Uncanny X-Men, making it a bi-weekly book. And that's all leading up to Magneto War. And that's where we find Astra was the one who created the Joseph clone of Magneto, and hijinks ensues. So she's one of these people. There's a fourth member, 3K, who talks about her clones don't work well, and he should know as they like clones. I say he, but I don't know. They wear a mask. I'm immediately thinking it's the Orcus Nathaniel Exus, Dr. Stasis, right? Yeah. Because like, who else likes clones in the X-Men franchise and wears a mask? So hopefully we get that reveal. Cassandra Nova is taking over Billy Piper's sister, or not her, not taking over, but guiding her telepathically to fight Magneto, who's using the giant Sentinel armor to fight. There's that weird moment where he's like, "I don't make speeches," or I'm like, "Magneto, that's all you do is make speeches." Magic, I think only shows up twice in the whole issue. Like in the beginning to establish that she's fighting, and then the end when Cyclops takes down the 3K X-Men team, who really want to be X-Men official, where you're like, just pick an adjective or color, and then you're an X-Men team. Like you're good. Um, their leader, who has like a ridiculous like radiation type of name, like the Kiger Spear, the Kiger something. These characters are not gonna matter in like a year. Um, but he is taunting Cyclops about, you're one of the weakest X-Men powers, so it's odd that you're a leader. And it's like, yeah, because Cyclops is a master tactical leader. Like it's because on the battlefield, there's none better. Unlike his X-Men, where he takes that guy out, and then the rest of the members are just like, uh, we don't really know what to do. We don't want to keep fighting. And so Cyclops is just like, we'll figure it out. Meanwhile, Wire is inside the faculty, which goes back to my one of my initial complaints about or comments about the the factory they live in is it's gigantic. Like, well, it's pretty much like the Xavier mansion, where it's like, I'm sure you're not using half that mansion. You could have easily have housed some Morlocks, but it's just like it's a 12-member X-Men team, including staff mutants, and it's a giant factory. Like you could probably lose each other, right? You have all the private time you want. Dedicate a whole floor to just your own nonsense. So it's like, yeah, I bet anyone can infiltrate that. Oh, and Kid Omega is not dead, but Zorn picks him up and is gonna heal him, so I guess Kid Omega's fine. So yeah, this is a solid issue. Lord Kinney Wolverine 7 gave us our Hell Wolverine content we love so much with her and Hellion. He proposed marriage to Laura, and then she immediately's like, "This is fake. I'm not a, you know, teen girl in a sitcom." And then that shatters the illusion. She's like, "You guys are jerks." And then, but yeah. So hopefully we get real Gabby and hopefully Jonathan in an upcoming arc, as Laura's not thrilled about having her head messed with. Storm dying. We're still setting up Thunder War, as I like to playfully call it. Um, we see Armor and Big Bertha in Storm Sanctuary, which I would love a new Contest of Champions written by this author and taking place in Storm Sanctuary. That sounds like a lot of fun. Maggot's doing his own, well, Contest of Champions essentially. She-Hulk's distracted, and so Storm's in prison being harassed by the guy who's the government stooge who's harassing Cyclops. And I'm like, buddy, you do not want Cyclops and Storm as enemies. Like, you're gonna want to back down or what? And but She-Hulk finally gets her match done and then like bails Storm out. And then we find out one of the other Thunder Gods we're not that familiar with is making moves. And I don't know, I'm just here for the maggot stuff as I'm not. The Thunder God stuff is just getting into the God cosmic stuff that I'm not the biggest fan of, but it's still a solid issue. So, the ex-ladies are just slaying in their solo ongoings. What? Oh yeah. Imperial 1 came out, which by Jonathan Hickman, that it's just cosmic stuff I had no real footing for. I was mostly I'm gonna be in this just to see what Xandra is doing. And it seems like she's reunited with her mother, the Launderer, which is cute. Some space guy accuses, he- I guess they're trying to make a galaxy treaty, peace treaty, but he's like, "There's one of you is a murderer." And then this explosions happen. The Hulk family's up there, and so it's like, all right. It just didn't catch my attention. Neither did the Marvel Knights World to Come, by Joe Quesada and Christopher Priest, which I love that creative team. And we go into the future, or the whole series takes place in the future. They do address Storm's dead in this universe, so it's like, oh, so that's it. Like, there goes my interest in this. Well, I do hope someone remembers that the X-Men did have a Marvel Knights miniseries that I loved, where it was Kitty, Logan, and Rogue went to like Louisiana and tried to help out a bunch of teen mutants, none of them ninjas, and it was just a fun time. So, um. So yeah, that was the comics of last week. Let's see what comics are out this Wednesday. Another giant week. But two of my favorite ongoings come out, Exceptional X-Men 10, which we should learn about Emma and Sinister. Uh, Magic 6, a real contender of who's gonna win my heart this week. Um, oh, this is the one reuniting the creative team of Ashley Allen and the artists from the Blood Hunt Magic one shot that gave us the mini series or her Magic's ongoing series. So I'm just like, yes, please. And she's teaming up with Madeline Pryor, so that should be great. The Marvel United Pride special, which I'm getting the Lucinio cover with Kitty. It's a homage of the Captain America punching Hitler cover. I'm really hoping Kitty's in the book itself, but just being on the cover is enough to get me to buy a comic. Giant Size Dark Phoenix Saga, which we know is going to lead into the Age of Apocalypse, so I'm on board for that one. But unless they make a reference to Kitty Pryde, I'm just going to be like, sure. Um, Ultimate X-Men 16. So that's just Peach Momoko at her best, month in and month out. Phoenix 12, where we learn more about Sarah Gray. One War Under Doom 5, which 4 was great, so I'm hoping 5 just continues that momentum. Uh, Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe one last time. I'm pretty much just giving up on this title. And Deadpool Wolverine 6 by Ben Percy and Joshua Castanara, who I love, and is a great Twitter follow. And just 90s action comics at its best with Deadpool and Wolverine, which has amazing art. But I wish I was more invested in the story. But it's not even the 90s. I was an Excalibur Spider-Man guy. Like we weren't really doing Executioner song titles like stories that I was loving. Like I still was all about the character work. But everyone, that was episode 180 of Shadow and Flame and Magic. I'm gonna pick four images. One would definitely be the Iron Man versus um the Captain Marvel teams, especially as one of those has the. And then I gotta figure out what the other two are. You can follow the see which images on the podcast's socials at SNFWM and spelt out. And you follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at JackoSII. And thank you so much for listening. And I will talk at you next time. All right, everyone. Bye.